Hi, welcome to this PL tutorial. The topic is GOTO statement. The GOTO statement transfers control to a label block or statement. Now, you may be wondering what I meant by a label block or statement. Label in PL is a way to name a particular part of a program. Its main purpose is to identify a block or a statement. Here on the screen is how you should use labels. You need to enclose the label name or identifier with double angular brackets. You will understand it properly in the practical overview. When a GOTO statement is encountered in PL it transfers the control to the first executable statement that comes after the label mentioned in the GOTO statement. This is the syntax of the GOTO statement. At first, there is the GOTO keyword, and then the label. Then you can provide some other optional code. After that, you need to specify a label name or identifier that identifies the part of the program where you want the control to jump. Then you can provide the code that will execute when the control jumps from the GOTO statement. This code should be a statement or a block. Labels only work before statements and blocks. Here you can see the example of the GOTO statement. I will explain this example in the practical overview. Let's check the GOTO statement example practically. Here at the first line we have the GOTO section 1 statement. So here we want the control to jump to the section 1 label. Control will jump to the section 1 label and will execute the statement which is after the section 1 label. After executing the statement, control will move to the next statement which is go to section 2. So here we want the control to move to the section 2 level. So control will move to the section 2 level and will execute the statement which is after the section 2 level. After executing this statement, control will move to the next statement which is go to section 3. So here we want the control to move to the section 3 level. So control will move to the section 3 level and will execute the statement which is after the section 3 level. So if we execute this whole PL anonymous block, on the screen you will be able to see this is section 1, this is section 2, and this is section 3. Let's execute the code. As you can see, at first this is section 1, then this is section 2, and at the last this is section 3. I modified the previous code a bit to make the GOTO statement more understandable. So here you can see the GOTO statement. So go to section 1. So control will move to the section 1 level and will execute this statement which is after the section 1 level. And after executing this statement, control will move to the next statement which is this statement. After executing this statement, control will move to the next statement which is go to section 2. So now control will move to the section 2 level and will execute this statement which is after the section 2 level. After executing this statement, the whole PL block will be completed. Now you need to note that control won't be able to execute this statement because before coming to this statement, control will come to the go to section 2 statement. So here we want the control to move to the section 2 level. So control will jump to this section 2 level and will execute this statement. Control won't be able to come to this statement. So after executing this whole anonymous block on the screen, you will be able to see this is section 1, message 1, and this is section 2. So let's execute the whole code. So here you can see this is section 1, message 1, and this is section 2. There are some restrictions available for the GOTO statement. The first restriction is a GOTO statement cannot transfer control into an if statement, case statement, loop statement, or subblock. Let's understand the restriction using this example. Here, I have declared a variable n with the value 4. And in the execution section, here is the GOTO statement, go to even. So the control will try to jump to the even label and will try to execute this statement. But as you can see, it is inside the if statement. So according to the restrictions, we will get an exception. So let's execute it. You can see the exception here. This GOTO cannot branch to level even. The next restriction is a GOTO statement cannot transfer control from one if statement clause to another or from one case statement when clause to another. Let's understand the restriction using this example. Here, I have declared a variable n with the value 15 And inside the execution section, you can see two if statement. Inside one of the if statement, we have the goto statement, goto odd. So if the control comes to this statement, control will try to jump to the level odd here and will try to execute this statement. But according to the restriction, this shouldn't happen. So if we try to execute this whole PL/SQL block, we should get an exception. Let's execute it. As you can see, the exception, this goto cannot branch to label odd. The next restriction is a goto statement cannot transfer control out of a subprogram. A subprogram is a named PL/SQL block, which means a procedure or a function. Let's understand the restriction using this example. Here you can see I have declared a variable in with the value 14, and also I have declared a procedure isEven. As I already said, a subprogram is procedure or a function. So inside this procedure, I tried to check if a number is even or not. According to that, it will provide us some message. After this if statement, there is a goto statement, goto numchecked inside this procedure. Inside the execution section, you can see I've tried to call the procedure isEven and also passed the value of n. So you know already we have goto numchecked inside this procedure. So if control comes to this statement, it will try to jump to this label numchecked and will try to execute this statement. But according to the restriction, this shouldn't happen and we will get an exception. Let's execute this whole PL/SQL block. Here you can see the exception. This goto cannot branch to label numchecked. The next restriction is a goto statement cannot transfer control into an exception handler. Let's understand the restriction using this example. Here in the execution section, you can see the goto statement goto xjump. And in the exception section, here is the label xjump. So when the control comes to this goto statement, it will try to jump to the xjump level and will try to execute this statement. But according to the restriction, this shouldn't happen and will give us an exception. Let's execute the whole PL/SQL block. As you can see, the exception, this goto cannot branch to label xjump. The next and the last restriction is a goto statement cannot transfer control from an exception handler back into the current block, but it can transfer control from an exception handler into an enclosing block. Let's understand the restriction using this example. Here, I have prepared two blocks. The first one is to check if the goto statement can transfer control from an exception handler back into the current block. And the next one is to check if a goto statement can transfer control from an exception handler into an enclosing block. So for the first example, you can see the xjump label in the execution section, and you can see the goto xjump in the exception handler section. So if the control comes to this statement, then the control will try to jump to this label xjump here and will try to execute this statement. But according to the restriction, this shouldn't happen and will produce an exception. So let's execute this PL/SQL block. As you can see the exception, this goto cannot branch to label xjump. And for the next example, you can see inside the execution section, we have a subblock. And inside the exception section of the subblock, we have the goto statement, goto jump enc block. So if the control comes to the goto jump enc block statement, it will try to jump to the label jump enc block and will try to execute this statement. So if we execute this whole PL/SQL block, you should be able to see jump to enclosing block and jump from exception block on the screen. Let's execute this whole PL/SQL block. You can see these two messages. If you learned something new, then like this video, share with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. And lastly, thanks for watching.